What's up, you guys? Sean Ross Sapp here for the Fightful.com podcast. September 11th edition, our first of two technically on September 11th, since we will be covering Backlash on Sunday evening. This show brought to you by DraftBeast.com. Go to DraftBeast.com for the newest, the best in fantasy sports. Some pretty awesome games over at DraftBeast.com. Goon games where you can pick the most penalized players. There are also games where you pick the worst team possible, which is much more difficult than you would expect. Although something tells me that just happens by default to Showdown Joe. Speaking of Showdown Joe, he's here. Fresh off of Titan FC last night. Showdown Joe, you got to take in UFC 203.
Yeah, well, wasn't that an interesting event? And what's up, my man Sean? What's up to everybody tuned in right now? I apologize ahead of time if my energy is really, really low. Obviously, I took a very quick flight after Titan FC, got back to the hotel at 2 a.m. I was in the lobby by 4:30 a.m., and I'm on a flight at 7 a.m. Got home, took a quick nap, and then bang, before you know it, it's UFC 203, and we saw a fair amount of interesting fights, crazy in-cage antics, CM Punk, crazy main event, insane, I don't know, what do you call that, co-main event, and all that other stuff. So, but I will let you carry this show, Sean.
Well, that might be a problem, Joe, because as you all can see, my environment is a little bit different right now. About 2 hours before UFC 203 kicked off, we had a power outage at my home. I had to drive a half an hour to a family member's house, watch the show, enjoyed it with my cousin. Also, this is where I'm doing the podcast from, so I have another half an hour drive after this show. That should be fun. But there is no shortage of things to talk about on this show, Joe. And we will go in reverse order. I think that's fair. But if I had to you remember how they used to name UFC shows?
Yeah.
This one would be UFC 203 Outclassed.
I can see that. I like it. It makes total sense. Yeah.
That main event, though, wow, this was something special for Cleveland. Stipe Miocic knocked out Alistair Overeem first round, and what a first round that was. Same boat as I, that every single time that these guys swung their arms at each other, you're like, this is it. No, this is it. No, this is it.
Yeah, pretty much. It's heavyweights, right? It's heavyweights, and they push so much mass. And, you know, when those guys land, it's generally an ugly situation. But when you're talking about, you know, arguably the number one in the world, it's Stipe Miocic versus Overeem, who, you know, has a track record of being arguably the best striker in heavyweight history, winning all those belts with Dream and K1 and Strikeforce and stuff like that. He's got the ability to knock out anybody at any time. We saw that when he landed that left. Although his game plan was, I don't know what he was doing there. I mean, he was jogging, he was running away, and you know, and I heard Rogan say he's trying to conserve his energy. I can buy that for sure, but if he'd actually put it together, he'd have probably won this fight.
Well, there were some interesting aspects of this fight. Overeem landed big first, scooted Stipe Miocic. I thought it was almost a flash knockout for a second. I thought that Miocic got blasted, maybe like, you know, saw stars, and that was it. Overeem tried to lock on a guillotine in which, after the fight, he claimed that Miocic tapped. Now, granted, Overeem went out cold. So he probably thought a lot of things. He probably thought he was on a spaceship going to Jupiter, too. There are a lot of things that he probably thought in that moment. Joe Rogan went all DVD bonus features on him and switched angles up 2 or 3 times and was like, no, there was no tap.
You take a look, and right then he's like, oh yeah, we'll get the truck to get it right now. No pressure on the production team in the truck to hurry up and find that, because I'm standing here with the guy that just claimed, just lost, and that his opponent tapped out. But good on the production team, especially those guys in the truck, because I know exactly what that's like. We had not the same example yesterday in Titan, but I know what it's like for those guys in the truck to try and get anything. But they did pull it up. They put it up on the big screen, and Rogan and Overeem, arm in arm, got to watch it together a few times from a few different angles, and there was no tap. So Overeem, not only did he get knocked out, now he's eating crow in front of thousands of people in an arena and millions of people watching worldwide. I can understand exactly what you're saying. He got his bell rung, so his noggin and his thought pattern, wasn't probably proficient as it should be. But I could definitely understand that, because you've rolled before, you've submitted guys before, and sometimes you kind of felt the tap, and the guy's like, no, I'm good. I'm like, I thought you just tapped on my thigh there. Okay, we'll keep going.
There are many times when I gave some sneaky taps. I will admit I am a cheater. I will do whatever it takes to best someone in training. It doesn't happen a lot, but yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot that could have happened in Overeem's mind, but they didn't happen. They absolutely didn't. We saw it from every angle. We saw Miocic use his wrestling and recover, get side control. And really, Overeem wanted no parts of Miocic on the ground. They got back up to the feet, and they started to have a few exchanges. And boy, these exchanges were even. Both men looked like they could crumble with each strike. But then Miocic started to pull ahead a little bit more. He would back Overeem up against the cage and really unload. I was waiting for him to attack the body. That didn't happen as much as I thought. But then Miocic ends up on top of Overeem, and even with a minute left, you know that could be it. And it looked like Overeem was just trying to weather the storm, Joe. But when your head gets bounced off the canvas by a Stipe Miocic punch from the top, you're not going to weather many storms that way.
No, not with that kind of power. I mean, that guy's an absolute beast. And the way he, at first when he was laying down the ground and pound, I thought to myself, man, you've got to separate a bit. You're getting a little bit more space. The hammer fists will work because you are a heavyweight, but if you get a bit more space, and Overeem wasn't really controlling with the both underhooks, wasn't keeping Miocic close enough. So then I guess you see Miocic stepping away, and then when he starts landing those rights, and that was it. It was night out. That you saw the thunder. And the one thing that kind of blew me away, just on a personal perspective, is I've interviewed both guys, and I've stood next to both guys. I always thought Overeem was way bigger than Miocic, and now I look close, and you look at Miocic, he was so much bigger than Overeem, and it really just, again, we talk about this almost every show, Sean. It's my 5'7" complex where I think I'm as tall as everybody, but I don't remember Miocic being that huge and that much of a massive human being, especially in comparison to Overeem. But you just saw that power. You saw that power that he possesses, and if he lands any of that leather, it's lights out for anybody in that division.
By the way, guys, we will have updates from the UFC 203 post-fight press conference as we go. Speaking of, Miocic has said backstage that he would rather fight in Brazil again than to fight at home, and said that everything that came with it was a distraction. I could see that, Joe. I could see that being very, very, very distracting. I mean, you're doing this for your city, not just any city, Joe. You're doing this for Cleveland, which has a rich history in losing. As I wrote in the Elevator article, which we will talk about later, anything bad that can happen in Cleveland generally does happen in Cleveland.
Well, yeah. Well, the one thing about fighting at home, Rich Franklin and George St. Pierre told me the exact same things. They would never want to fight at home ever again. If they had the choice, they would fight elsewhere. The only taste I've ever had of something similar to that, and not fighting, was when the UFC had the Rogers Center show, with 55,000 people in there. I mean, anybody and everybody that I ever knew in my life was asking for tickets to this massive UFC event. George would always say he couldn't stand fighting in Montreal because anybody and everybody he ever knew in his life was looking for tickets and coming out of the woodworks, coming out from the bowels. It's just like, it's a lot of pressure, and I think you saw that a bit with Jessica I tonight. And the same thing, Stipe says it afterwards. He'd rather fight away from home so he can focus on fighting and not have to worry about looking at his phone every 2 seconds and seeing an email or a tweet, or not even a tweet, or even a text, or hey, or the phone ring, and hey, remember me from kindergarten school? We did this, and you and I were fighting, or we played basketball or baseball or something like that. So there's a lot of pressure. In terms of Cleveland's history, that's another story altogether. But I think Toronto's up there right now. We've got we got a losing track record in a lot of things, especially with my Jays actually won today, so we're good about that. My Toronto Maple Leafs are finally turning the corner.
Well, they won back-to-back titles in the 90s. That was 20-something years ago, but still.
True.
We're not talking like the 60s, like Cleveland. Now, after the fight, Overeem did say the tap. Do you think he really thought there was a tap, or do you think he was maybe putting on a little bit? Do you think maybe that obviously the fact that he went out cold had something to do with it?
I think it's a combination of both, Sean. I think, yeah, he was out cold, his bell was rung, but B, he really believed it. I'm sure he really believed it. For him to actually say that, he probably believed it. And he's like, you know what? Yeah, it happened. And then when you see it on the big screen and it didn't happen, you're like, oh boy. Can we end this interview right now?
So we had a very interesting fight in Fabricio Werdum and Travis Browne. I thought the first round was very fun. Fabricio Werdum did one of the craziest ass kicks I have ever seen in my entire life, Joe. He flew through the air and just drilled Travis Browne in the face. By the way, he completely outclassed Travis Browne. The scorecard does not tell the tale of the fight. Werdum really stepped off the gas. Edmond Taverdian.
I know this. I know. I was just waiting for you to mention it.
God. This is much more about him than it is about the actual fight. All of this couldn't have happened to a nicer guy than Edmond Taverdian. Now, I have friends that have trained under him. Virtually everything you hear, in my opinion, is true. That's my opinion on the guy. I think that Ronda Rousey would be much better at an alpha male, at a King's MMA, at a, I don't know, a 24-hour fitness. What they got there in LA? What's the place where they have donuts at the front desk? What's that place called? Planet Fitness. There we go. She'd be better off at a Planet Fitness if she found Dr. Doolittle and he was able to get her to train with some animals. That might be better. Edmond Taverdian was like crying, lost his voice, all kinds of stuff. And then after this fight, he ran his mouth to Werdum, and Werdum kicked him. Werdum kicked him. Verdum's out there doing God's work.
You know what? I've had a few different scenarios where I've spoken to Edmond, and they've been positive, Sean. I'm not going to lie to you. They've been positive. I don't know him, and I don't know the story like you know the stories about the various people that have trained with him and stuff like that. So I can't speak on anything negative. But when you see some of the stuff that you see, even going back to The Ultimate Fighter, when Ronda Rousey was coaching opposite Miesha Tate and some of the stuff they showed, and I get that's all editing and stuff like that. But even tonight, like I don't understand the logic behind yelling at Fabricio Werdum or getting into some sort of posturing situation or commentating on anything. Like, I mean, just what are you doing? I don't get it. Like, it makes absolutely no sense to do something like that. And Werdum isn't the type of guy that's going to back down, especially if he doesn't like the guy. Remember, look where Werdum trains. I mean, he's in Cali. He knows what's up. There's a bit of beef there, I'm sure, somewhere that sort of, I guess, spilled over into the octagon. But I mean, what are you doing? I mean, you can't be yelling at the former heavyweight champion of the world, even though your fighter lost. I mean, just stay quiet. Let the decision, let Buffer announce a decision and just walk away, man.
So that wasn't even the weirdest thing that happened in this fight. Not by a long shot. In the first round, there was an exchange, and Travis Browne turned away. He dislocated his finger. Now, Joe, I've dislocated my finger in the middle of a pro wrestling match. But there's a difference here, Joe. In a pro wrestling match, you're working with the other person in the ring. Travis Browne ain't working with Fabricio Werdum. So therefore, when Fabricio Werdum says, I'm going to punch you in the face, I'm going to chase you down, it is well within his right to do so. Now, I don't want to pick on Copeland, but he refs in my area a lot, some questionable calls to say the least. Some of my teammates have been a part of them. Now, that being said, with the amount of fights that he has to cover on a regional basis, some of those are going to happen. There are times when this guy has to ref 11, 12 fights in a night. Sometimes the law of averages tells you that's going to happen. But tonight, if Travis Browne can't continue because his finger's dislocated, that's it. It sucks. It would suck for the audience, but that's it. You don't get a timeout to do that. Now, respect to him for popping the finger back in and going back at it, and also Werdum attacking his fingers immediately afterwards. That sick bastard. But but that's Fabricio Werdum, and that's him trying to win a fight. What did you think of this whole situation? It was really weird to me.
Well, it was wrong on so many levels. Number one, when Travis Browne steps away and says, "Oh, my finger, fight over." You put your hands up as a referee, the fight's over. There's no questions in the rules and the unified rules of MMA. It explicitly says so. You cannot.
Let me interrupt you. Imagine if CM Punk would have been like, "Timeout, timeout, my throat. I'm getting choked. Stop. Hold on for a second. My throat. What?
Right? Yeah. So it's MMA, and the strike that or the whatever happened of Browne's finger came from a strike. Right?
Yeah.
It came from a strike. It was Werdum throwing the overhand, and Browne had his hands out, bang, and it dislocated his finger. Well, you just verbally submitted is exactly what you basically did. But the referee, like your buddy, should have went in there and gave it the old it's done. Thanks for calling. Well, this whole melee happens in there, basically just comes to a halt. What's happening? Doctor comes in, and then that's when I guess Browne realized, you know what, I'm about to lose this fight. I'm fine. But then, he does come back. So kudos to Travis for doing that, because I'm sure he was in a lot of pain. But the performance tonight from Travis Browne was not something I had expected. I figured he has, you don't get many opportunities in life. I know it's the heavyweight division to get second or third chances, to have another run at a potential title shot, or a run to be at least close enough to get a title shot. This was it for him, man. He had a chance against Fabricio Werdum to really make a statement. And the performance was just like, oh my goodness, what's happening here? And he didn't really pick it up till about 30 seconds left in the fight. So it's tough to say. And Werdum looked really out of shape, in my opinion. He looked like he had a gut there. It didn't look like he was.
Let's be honest. USADA's done a number on a few of these guys.
I didn't want to say it.
But I'll tell you what.
You said it.
It has not done a number on the referee, Gary Copeland.
Yeah, he's pretty jacked. He's pretty jacked, dude. He's pretty built there.
Yeah. Yeah, let's maybe get some testing there. Travis Browne, I just think he can't do it at that top level. He's always the bride. He's not even a bridesmaid. He's more like an usher in a wedding. He's not a groomsman. He's not going to get a title
shot. Though? I don't understand, Sean. I don't understand why when he fights these guys, it's a completely different situation. Like there can't be fear. There's not fear there. You're a professional fighter. You're in there, and sometimes you just go for broke. And he's done it before. I mean, you saw what happened in his fight versus Overeem. He got his butt handed to him.
Yeah, to be honest, I think if Barnett and Overeem were to fight him 10 times, each one of them would probably win that fight. I think Barnett and Overeem would win those fights 7 or 8 times out of 10. Overeem had a real problem at that point of his career on stepping off the gas, not stepping off the gas pedal, emptying his gas tank and not having anything left. Barnett, I don't think, would make that mistake of leaving his head where he left it. And that's really what he made his career on, because it wasn't the win over Matt Miocic. That's not that big of a win. Brendan Schaub literally didn't just have one foot out the door. He was as good as gone. He was ready to be a podcaster after that. Other than that, the last few years since 2014 rolled over, he hasn't beat anybody else. He's lost to Velasquez, Werdum, Arlovsky, Werdum again. I just don't think he can get it done at that level. Now, like I said, there are far worse things than being a heavyweight gatekeeper. There's plenty of money to be made there, but
I'm Sean. I'm 100% convinced it's mental. It has to be mental to get in there and not execute what you've been training for potentially 10 to 12 weeks. It's mental. It's got to be mental to me. I've hung out with Travis on numerous occasions, and from Denver to LA to Toronto a bunch of times when he came down here for signings. Just a great dude. Super athletic. Bad dude when he wants to be. We were in Albuquerque when he was still with Jackson Winklejohn. We went to one of those. All you guys in the States have these amazing barbecue restaurants like on every corner. We don't have them here.
Yeah.
So any chance I can get down there to Texas or anywhere in general, all these barbecue places, I'm going there Thursday, Friday morning, Friday for lunch, and I'm there we're having me and my associate producer, camera guy, Travis, and Anthony Hamilton just grubbing away, eating away, and we're just talking about fights, and he's talking about the mental area about getting into the zone, and I'm watching it tonight, and I'm like, what just happened here? Why does this keep happening to you when you're fighting bigger dudes or guys with bigger names?
I'll tell you why. It's probably because of his shitty camp. Anyway.
You never know that way.
No, I won't, because I've seen it. I've seen it firsthand. And I don't want to single out people, because there are some people, like I said, that have trained there that I love personally and that I respect personally and that I have physically trained with. And then I see them go there and I see them regress. And that shouldn't happen.
That bad.
That bad. Okay, I'll say it like this. And I hate that I'm singling out Jessamine Duke because she is one of the best humans I know. She really is an angel of a person. I trained with her when she was in Kentucky. And, oh boy, she was putting a hurting on some people. She went to Glendale. And if you remember in that Betch Correia fight, you could see the fact that she had trained with Rousey. Her, like, going into that fight, I was like, I really hope Jessamine stays out of the clinch because she needs to use her range. She fought Thai fights a lot and used her range and was real good, real good. The people out here were real good about it. The coaches on Tough were real good about it. And then she got in the clinch and she was hitting throws. Like, you could tell she had trained with Ronda Rousey. But then there was no more range in any of her fights since then. And I mean, any of her fights since then. And like I said, not trying to pick on her, but I mean, if they follow the same protocol as Ronda Rousey, maybe they're not doing a lot of live sparring. I don't know. We talked about how Donald Cerrone and Robbie Lawler are at that level and don't necessarily need it anymore. The folks at Glendale are not at that level. They are not at that level. And like I said, I think a lot of people regress there. Jake Ellenberger. What happened when he left? I mean, is that a coincidence? I don't think it's a coincidence. Also, he's a pretty terrible human by all accounts. So Edmund, not Jake Ellenberger. Jake Ellenberger seems like a great guy. But either way, I'm done ranting about them. Oh, no, I'm not done ranting about them.
You will never be done ranting about that.
Because I have a great idea, Joe.
Oh, no. Here we go.
CM Punk versus Edmund Taverdian.
Interesting. Okay.
Would you watch that fight? Would you watch that fight?
I would.
I would watch that fight. I would watch that fight so hard. CM Punk, that's the reason everybody's watching this show right now. I want your thoughts beginning to end of the fight, his output, his attitude, everything, and then we'll get into Gall.
First things first. Well, first, I just want to say I want to give him props for getting in there and being able to step in there and try out mixed martial arts on a massive stage like that. The absolute, it's either it's risk or reward. You either fail miserably, or not really fail miserably. You could potentially fail miserably, or you can just be on top of that mountain like he was saying and get the highest of highs, or somewhere in the middle. Well, whatever. And I tweeted out whatever the worst nightmare he may have ever had about mixed martial arts happened to him tonight. And for him to come out and Mickey Gall's a brown belt, okay? The last thing sorry?
He's trained for 8 years.
Yeah, okay. So the last thing I would want to do if I'm fighting or competing against a brown belt, and I'm only, I guess we're going to say Punk's a white belt, maybe a blue belt, is I don't want that guy touching me. I don't want him anywhere near me. I don't want any sort of clinch. I'm going to watch where I am around the cage. This sumbitch is going to be a stand-up fight. Okay, I'm going to pick my shots. I'm going to work my Muay Thai. I'm going to work my boxing. If he's got a longer reach than me, I'm going to have to get inside and get out, get inside and get out. I'm going to pick this guy apart for 15 minutes until an opportunity presents itself for me to go in for the finish. What I'm not going to do is just walk into a takedown. And that's exactly what CM Punk did. He walked into a takedown. He got taken down to the ground. And I'm sure when you're training for a guy that's really good on the ground, plan B now is to get this fight as quickly as I can back to my feet. Well, he wasn't able to do that because Mickey Gall did whatever he wanted to do and was able to quickly get into a dominant position eventually. And he landed some monstrous punches. CM Punk could have tapped out the strikes if he wanted to, but he didn't. He showed heart and he showed, I'm not getting out of here. I got to figure this out. Well, every time he tried to do it, Mickey Gall was 2 or 3 steps ahead, ended up getting his back, slapping in that rear naked choke. A very disappointing performance for CM Punk, I'm sure. I don't know his mental state. I'm sure somewhere in there he's probably really, really dejected. Maybe in there he's like, you know what? I did it. I tried it. I failed. Who cares? I did it. Most people will never say that they could do it. So I'll give him kudos on that. But, I'm not saying the game plan was wrong because maybe the game plan was correct. It was CM Punk's execution right off the top, right at the very beginning of the fight. That was basically the beginning of the end for his debut in mixed martial arts.
I think you said it. There's not really a lot more I can add to that. I was impressed that given Gall's experience, especially being a brown belt, that Punk lasted as long as he did. I was shocked. This is, and you know, there's a lot of first-time MMA fans that watch. I can't convey to you the difference in the amount of training that these two had. Mickey Gall said he's been training there since he was 16 years old. That's 8 years. 8 years. He's a brown belt. Another thing to remember, this was his 5th fight between amateur and pro. That's a lot compared to 0. If I were to, if CM Punk were not CM Punk and he were just some dude, I would say this is malpractice, promotional malpractice to have booked an 0-0 guy against a guy with this level of experience in Gall. Because
that's a valid argument. Very valid argument.
They didn't do CM Punk any favors with this matchup. And people were like, oh, well, there were people acting like he should be fighting a UFC level guy. No, he didn't need to be fighting a UFC level guy. There are hundreds of people on that UFC roster, and there are probably maybe hundreds that don't belong there even. There are a lot. None to the level of CM Punk. CM Punk does not belong in the UFC. But here's the thing. The UFC is a business. He sells pay-per-views. He creates buzz. I know. I see the web traffic. It absolutely happens. There is no mandation, like there's no mandatory experience level. It's not. So what's to keep him out? There's nothing. If people want to watch him fight, people will watch him fight. And we talked about this before, people saying, well, he took somebody's spot. No, not really. And generally, the reception that I've seen among fighters is almost unanimously positive among those at the top levels of the sport. It's those guys who are kind of bitter, have a chip on their shoulder, not too happy, haven't maybe reached that top level of success, that are a little pissy about it. And that's fine. They have every right to be pissy about it. The UFC, like I said, did not do Punk any favors with this matchup. When I started out, even a year in, I trained with Sean Asher, who was a Bellator fighter. I think he's right now 11-2 as a pro. There was such a feeling of hopelessness there. Like being so new and training with somebody who was so good and so much better. And at the time, he was just a few years in, 3 years in maybe. CM Punk has been training with a great camp for about a year, a little over a year if you take out the time with injuries. He looked in great shape compared to his WWE days. But, man, that matchup, damn. If I were the UFC, I would have put him in the cage with someone way closer to his experience level. Way, way, way closer to his experience level. Yeah, that's really what I take away from it. Respect to him for doing it. He does not belong there in the UFC, but there are some quotes from this press conference that are going on right now, by the way. He said that he's going to keep doing this. He does not know if it'll be in the UFC. He might get cut, but he hopes he doesn't. And his initial venture in the MMA was going to be at the lowest level, but the UFC presented itself. Joe, do you agree that he didn't do anything wrong? He just accepted an invitation given to him.
I've agreed from day one. If it's something that's going to be offered, do it. The other side of the coin that you and I both know is he could have said no and said, no, I'll work my way up. Let me get a few fights in to see if I can actually do this. Then I'll come up to the UFC. But it was his decision. He decided to do it, and all the power to him. I mean, from day one, it was a massive, massive risk for him. He accepted it. He showed up tonight, stepped in there, and under those bright lights, and for hundreds of thousands of people, millions probably watching, got his butt handed to him. But he did it. So kudos to him. We'll see what he does from here, where he competes, where he wants to compete. It could show up in Titan. Who knows? But it all depends on what he wants to do, and if he wants to continue to pursue it. He's not young. He's not in his 20s. He's in his, I guess, mid to late 30s. So if he's going to do it, he better do it soon. We'll see what his medical suspension is going to be. But like I said, he took a lot of shots. He took some hard shots from Mickey Gall before getting choked out. So, yeah, we'll see what the future holds for CM Punk. But I can't see it, happening again in the UFC anytime soon, if ever again.
I think that they'll give him another fight, one more fight. I think they'll do it with someone closer to his experience level, as it should have been in the first place. He should have fought maybe another 0-0, maybe a 1-0, but I don't know. Now, on the other side, well, and I'll say this, a lot of people in the wrestling community trolling him. Hey guys, if CM Punk calls Vince McMahon tomorrow, he's in the main event of WrestleMania next year. He gets whatever he wants out of wrestling, no matter what. That's how it happens. Oh, absolutely, without a doubt. He versus Triple H would be the main event of next year's WrestleMania, which is funny because him being booked against Triple H was one of the reasons he walked out, because he didn't think that that was a match that he needed. But with the history, with the realness behind it, with the podcast he did, if he were to call WWE right now and say, I want back, and it was he versus Triple H, with everybody knowing that history, main event of WrestleMania, which is one of the things he wanted all along. He never got that, even though he did deserve it. Absolutely, because WWE loves that. That's the weird thing, that they make themselves Hollywood's bitch. They really do. If The Rock comes back, he's the main event. If Brock Lesnar comes back and he's not Hollywood, you know what I mean?
Yep, 100%. Yep.
A celebrity has never lost at WrestleMania. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
10 to 15 matches they've had, and no celebrity or athlete has ever lost outside of a battle royal like 20 years ago. Snooki won at WrestleMania. Floyd Mayweather won at WrestleMania. Maria Menounos won a match at WrestleMania, Joe. That's what they do. They bastardize their own company, and they sacrifice their own guys who work full-time to put over people who don't work full-time because they're considered special. It's weird. That's why this Thursday, I'm going to make a case why Matt Riddle should be the next person to beat Brock Lesnar on WWE TV. I'm going to do that, and people are going to buy it. Hey, that's not a new argument. There's a lot of people. Matt Riddle is that good at wrestling, Joe. He's that good at wrestling. But we'll talk more about CM Punk as news filters in. I mean, that's really what people came here to see. But I got to say this about Mickey Gall. He knew exactly what he was going to do after this fight, and the kid is very smart. He called out Sage Northcutt. I'll say this, a winnable fight for him, an attainable a fight for him. That could headline a Fox Sports card. That could be a good fight. And you know what? That's probably a fight where he gets cheered heavily.
Did Sage Northcutt announce he's going back to welterweight?
No, but I'm sure, for that fight, that's probably the biggest fight either one of them is going to get right now.
Well, when Mickey Gall said that, the first thing I did is I looked to my right and I looked to my left to think, am I the only one in this room that thinks this really doesn't make any sense? Because I feel like I'm alone. Because even when I'm looking at some of the stuff online, I'm like, they're in two different weight classes. You just called out a guy who's smaller than you, who's in a smaller weight class. I don't see the logic. I've obviously missed something because I'm not understanding where this logic is. Mickey Gall fights at 170.
They're both from the show. They're both from the Looking for a Fight show. Yes. Sage Northcutt may be a little more experienced than him. Let me check his record. 8-1.
But
so I mean,
it was just So
you're sacrificing experience for size, sure. But I mean, Sage Northcutt, he's not a small guy. He's 6 feet tall. They're very similar in dimensions, at least that. Like I said, that would headline a Fox Sports 1 card.
You can't convince me. No one's going to convince me just yet. I need a lot more. I don't see it. It'd be like, I don't know. How do I say this? I mean, it's not like it's Robbie Lawler calling out Cowboy Cerrone, who fought at 155 forever and is now a stud at welterweight. I don't know. It doesn't really make sense to me. It's like,
So
I don't know. Tyron Woodley calling out Eddie Alvarez.
I disagree. Sage Northcutt he's fought at that weight before this year. And now he didn't look great, but he blamed it on sickness. And I think for this fight, I think this is a really good fight, especially for somebody who is 3-0 in Mickey Gall, because you're very limited in what you can do with him unless you're putting him up against one of those tough China mules, one of those guys.
I think they can do a lot with Mickey Gall now because of what he just did to CM Punk. He's got a nice little name. He clearly broke the record for F-bombs in a post-fight interview.
Oh, he sure did.
Wait.
The Diaz brothers exist.
No.
Now, he may have broken the record for ones that got through on air.
Okay. But that's what I was saying. Even in my tweet, I said, Mickey Gall clearly has to have broken some F-bomb record in a post-fight interview with the Diaz brothers literally going, what, WTF right now?
Yes.
Like, what's just happening here? So, but I think he's got, he's going to have to continue to sort of keep this hype around him. But anytime the UFC, remember, they're a mass marketing machine. Anytime Mickey Gall goes into a fight, he's the guy that beat CM Punk.
Sure is. Are you familiar with this elevator situation before UFC 203?
A little bit. There are a bunch of them that got caught in an elevator. I don't know the whole situation with CB Dalloway, but I saw the video with Uriah in there and all that stuff. So
we're gonna talk about that. So Uriah Faber for Reach Over Doom, Ray Sefo, CB Dalloway, tons of people. I'm talking like 15, 20 people on this elevator. Big ass elevators. I'm not a big city guy, Joe. Never been on an elevator that big. Either way, it crashed. The elevator, the cable snapped. They dropped a little bit. Everything seemed fine. Then at midnight or so, it's revealed that CB Dalloway is out of his fight with Francimar Barroso. Let me ask you, did anybody else get hurt in that, or just the guy who was on the chopping block with 3 straight losses and wanted his show money?
Continue the conspiracy. I got it. I hear you.
Just saying.
Yep.
Just saying.
Yeah, you're right. You're right, because it didn't make sense to me when I was looking at the video. I'm like, but these guys are fighting tonight. What's happening? What did I miss? Was I on a plane when this happened? Like, I know I was super busy last night, doing the play-by-play, and this is when it all went down. So I'm not able to watch it. I got to focus on what's happening in the cage and making sure I get my reads right. But none of this made sense to me. And we got to this when the card started. I'm like, why are Yancy Medeiros and Sean Spencer fighting right now? Where's these other 2 fights?
Yeah, and Donald Cerrone is crazy. He's crazy.
I saw that.
Because he offered to fight Francimar Barroso at 205 pounds, and he was serious. Now, keep in mind, this was just an hour after he got his UFC 205 fight with Robbie Lawler pulled, which is a bummer. That hurts. That's a heartbreaker. It was too good to be true. As a society, we didn't deserve it, and we didn't get it. Joe, offer your condolences to the world regarding this fight.
I refuse to read. I couldn't read that information. As I was reading it, and I was getting close to the word canceled. I said, "That's it. I can't deal with this. This is not the way it's supposed to happen." We were so looking forward to this Clash of the Titans, Greek God fight, and we don't get it now. Now we don't get it. I don't think it's right, but I do get the fact that Donald Cerrone texted Dana White and said, "I'll be more than happy to fight." On 18-second notice. I mean, the guy's a legit crazy dude, man. He's just absolutely hilarious, fearless to say the least, doesn't care who he fights. And, he told us 100 times in person, it's payday, man. I just want to get paid. I want to make as much money as I can. Conor McGregor isn't the first person to say that. Donald Cerrone isn't the first one either. But these are guys that realize I get paid only if I fight. Yeah, I cash sponsor checks. Yeah, I can do this. Yeah, I can do that. But I love fighting, and I want to fight, and I'll do it right now. It'll take me 2 minutes to head over to a store and buy a pair of shorts. No, wait, Reebok has my shorts, okay? The Cutmen have the tape. You guys have the gloves. I just got to show up. I'm ready. Let's do it. That's Donald Cerrone, man.
Gall is at the post-fight presser right now. He says that CM Punk came in too hot, came in too aggressive, and he said that he knew he would beat him in either spot. And he meant to say that he wanted to fight Sage Northcutt at MSG. Because he's a Jersey boy. And he says he wants to become the UFC champion. He said that privilege rubbed people the wrong way, but I think Punk earned that privilege because of what he did in another industry. He said that he thinks Punk should take some time. I think there's money to be made on him. I think he'll have another UFC fight. Says Punk is still not a fighter, or he would have shook my hand. He doesn't have the respect yet. He'll get that. Lots of stuff. He says that he thinks the Northcutt fight makes a lot of sense because both of them have questions, or both have questions surrounding them. Yeah, what do you think about some of his post-fight comments? He says he's ready for the UFC killers now.
Well, settle down, bud. Settle down. He just beat CM
Yeah,
Punk. Let's just settle
turn it
down.
down a tad.
Yeah, he's got to relax a little bit, and don't kid yourself. He could be also planting a seed for a rematch with CM Punk one day. So he's just he's being smart about what he's saying. I'm not buying the Sage Northcutt thing. It's going to take a while for me to be convinced about this fight, MSG or not. So I don't think that's relevant. But the whole, he wouldn't shake his hand at the weigh-ins and situation and stuff like that. I mean, apparently they were cool afterwards. They were cool in the cage afterwards. So I don't know where Mickey's going with that. But Mickey's going to go on a little bit of a rant here. I think he's doing his own little Conor McGregor, Chael Sonnen sort of, I'm going to be this guy here, and this is how I'm going to talk, this is how I'm going to be, this is what I'm going to say. I'm going to keep having all this sort of controversy or these cameras and lights on me. So I get that. I think that's really smart of him to do. But you're not convincing me about the Sage Northcutt fight. I'm not buying it.
You're missing out, Joe.
I don't think I am.
Jimmy Rivera didn't miss out tonight. He's a player at bantamweight now. We both predicted this. A lot of people don't know who Jimmy Rivera is. But Uriah, he dominated Uriah Faber, Joe.
For those that don't know who Jimmy Rivera was, they sure as hell do now. He just took out Uriah Faber, who was ranked, number 3 in the division, number 2 in the division, if I'm not mistaken, before this fight.
You think Rivera gets in the top 5 now? He should. I
think so. I absolutely think, dude. And I'm sitting and I'm looking at his stance, and I completely agree with what Uriah was trying to do. He's like, I can't get. It's like a dog. Picture a Rottweiler on a leash. Okay, trying to bite you. Okay, you gotta. How far does that leash go? Right? If I'm gonna play with this dog and try and get at, this dog's just rabid. That's what Jimmy Rivera was like. He was just sitting there in that stance. You come anywhere close to me, I'm going to make you pay. And if you move your leg this way, I'm chopping your leg. You want to exchange with me? I'm throwing hooks, I'm throwing straight bombs, and I'm going to shook you off me like you're absolutely nothing. And anytime Uriah tried to even get close, he took a beating.
It's almost like Rivera had like a spider sense, and he could tell when Faber was putting his weight on his front leg. Because every time Faber did, boy, he paid for it. He got chopped down every single time. This bantamweight division may be my favorite in the UFC right now. You have Dominic Cruz as the champion. You have former champions Dillashaw, Faber. Barrow's not there anymore, so forget him. You have Brian Caraway, who, if you can get him to fight somebody, then he's a good fight. But then Lineker, Garbrandt, Sterling, McDonald, Dodson. You still have Almeida there. Rivera, who's going to jump into the top 10. Whew, there are 10 guys that are just unbelievable. Oh, by the way, Justin Scoggins is joining that division too. Jeez, what a division. Jesus Christ. Like, unbelievable. Those guys. Sun Sao too.
I agree. It's a fantastic division. But let's go back to Uriah for 1 second. Did they confirm at the post-fight press conference that he did break his right hand? Because that happened really, really fast. And as soon as you see this, Sean, you've seen it before. When guys are doing whatever they're doing, when you start seeing this, it's like, oh boy, you are in big trouble, buddy, and it's early.
I gotta wear one of these right now. Now. Messed up my hand and my wrist. But yeah, I'll have to ask you. By the way, they're doing the presser at 203, like the one at 202, where they do them individually, which I love. By the way, it's just, I can't believe they didn't do that long ago. But do you think this is it for Uriah Faber as a top 5 fighter?
It's a good question. I'm going to say no, because, styles make fights, and Jimmy Rivera's style is clearly bad for Uriah Faber. I think if we go up and down that list, Uriah Faber can beat a lot of those guys on that list still.
I think he can beat a Sun Sao and Caraway.
That's it?
In the top 5, just saying.
In the top 5. Okay. So, yeah, I still think he's fine. I think he just met a guy tonight that has his number, a guy that whose style he could not figure out, and I'm not making excuses for the California kid, break your hand that early in a fight, and he's done it before. Man, it plays mind games. And his aggression level completely went from, oh boy, to like, oh no, I can't even use my right hand now, right? Now, I know in the Mike Browne fight, he was just throwing elbows like crazy, and we saw what kind of heart he had in the Jose Aldo fight. when he got that left leg or thigh and hamstring absolutely annihilated just to mince meat. But I think you're right. Faber still has it. I think he just met a guy that, we're going to be talking a lot about in the very near future. I mean, just that list that you mentioned, now put them all opposite Jimmy Rivera.
Jessica Andrade had a coming out party tonight. A lot of people know who Joanne Calderwood is. And the way that Joanne Calderwood looked in her last fight, a lot of people were expecting big things out of her. Andrade had no desire to find out what she had, took her down, choked her out. Fantastic performance. This is a girl who used to fight at 135. Now, I'll say this. Most of the women that she fought were really like 125ers, like Carmouche and Sexton and Pennington. And I don't know how Pacheco, I mean, Morris is, I think Sarah Morris is pretty big for that weight class. So, I mean, most of the girls she was fighting were like, she's a good case for a 125 division. She really is. But all of a sudden, she's a top name at 115. She's an option at 115 if somebody falls out of a big fight. She is right up there, beating Joanne Calderwood and Jessica Panay back-to-back. That's something that people need to be taking notice of, Joe.
Oh, they are. I think they are. Like you said, this is her coming out party, especially at this weight class. I mean, she's doing her thing, and the way she took out, JoJo tonight, very, very impressive. She does have a bit of work to do, but like you said, if she wants to, if they call her to step into a big fight, I'd pay attention because she's doing pretty good. And just to go back to Sarah Morris for a second, middle of an interview, she told me, I said, just to clarify your last name, is it Morris? And she looked at me, she said, no, Joe, it's more ass.
Ooh, well, there were some the first interaction I ever had with her.
She's awesome, by the way.
Yeah, she's incredible. She's a great person. We're pretty much best friends on Twitter, even though I haven't tweeted her in a while. There were a couple of guys that were watching her fight and said, Sarah Morris, more like Sarah Moore ass. And I was somehow involved in that tweet. I didn't say it, but she let us know that she saw it. I'll say that much. And that was very interesting. But she's an angel. She's great. I love Sarah.
Have you ever had any of her cheesecake?
No, I've not.
Apparently, she makes the baddest cheesecake ever.
It's my favorite. That's my favorite dessert.
I try not eating cheesecake ever. My wife makes a fantastic cheesecake, but if she makes it, I'll have a slice, whatever. But we had gotten this big conversation. I don't know what UFC was. It was in Vegas, and even her coaches were like, "Oh yeah, the stuff that Sarah makes is absolutely
wow,
showish." So the next time I get out to the West Coast, if she's still out there, I'm hitting her up like, "Hey, you making something? Coming over. I'll bring the coffee. Let's do this."
I gotta kiss her ass or something. Remind her of who I am. See if she even remembers me. Maybe get you to smuggle some into the country. I don't know how that will work. Is Jessica I done in the UFC, Joe?
Yeah, I think so.
Lost five of 6, and technically she has won one of, let's see, one of I think 8 fights in the UFC. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. No, one of 7 fights because the Kaufman got overturned. Now, granted, she beat Sarah Kaufman. She's a pretty active fighter. She fights at least twice a year, but she's lost 5 of her last 6. She has lost to Betch Correa, who is not championship caliber, but fought for the title. Sarah McMahon fought for the title. Juliana Pena is going to fight for the title eventually. Miesha Tate, former champion. Alexis Davis, another former title contender. And has lost by decision, sometimes close decisions. By the way, this fight sucked. This fight was terrible. Did not like it. But perhaps the real headline is Betch Correa beat somebody that I would say, she's borderline top 15 despite her record. Because Jessica she's always like right there in her fights. I mean, people once talked about her fighting Rousey. That ain't going to happen anytime soon.
I think it was
what do you feel about this whole
situation? She should fight Rousey.
Yeah, I think it was.
Yeah, right. But I mean, I when I was as the first round was done, I thought to myself, I was thinking with the whole Rich Franklin, George St. Pierre thing when they're like, oh, she's fighting at home, a lot of pressure. You don't want to make that
She
mistake.
said as much.
Yeah, you don't want to make that mistake and lose at home. So you may fight cautious or tentatively. And that's what I felt like she was doing because, in my opinion, Sean, if she'd have just simply switched a gear and really turned it on, I think she could have knocked out Betch, or she could have really hurt Betch and kind of did something completely different than what happened to her tonight. Because what the performance that she had tonight was seemed very, very cautious. And for you and I talked about this in the last podcast, she needs a win. She needs a win to stay with the Ultimate Fighting Championship. And in order to win, you got to knock somebody out, submit someone, or really become dominant on that scorecard to have three judges say, yeah, you won, even 29-28. She loses via split decision in a performance that, you could make the argument that, maybe she did win. She could have won this fight, but not convincingly. And unfortunately, her career with the UFC could be pretty much done.
If I were her, I would go to Invicta. I would fight at 125, and I would start making a public case for 125-pound divisions in the UFC because I think there is plenty of talent for that division. There were a lot of people that were like, oh, they need a 145 or 105 division. No, they do not. There is no talent there. But there, I think, is enough talent to form a solid top 5 to 10 at 125. Now, it's going to dilute the other divisions, but other people will step up. Miocic at the post-fight presser said, I felt Werdum's push kick. I feel bad for Edmund.
Just so bad. Okay.
Miocic says, I don't remember tapping out. I just remember punching him in the face repeatedly until he was unconscious. Oh, man.
He's turning heel, man. I think he's turning heel.
He's great. I love Miocic. He says that he will fight on Saturn if they ask him to. He's the heavyweight champion of the world. Well, that doesn't make him the heavyweight champion of the universe. Why would he fight on Saturn?
That's not smart. I'm telling you.
That's not smart. Werdum says, Miocic said okay to the rematch. I think he loves me. Also, Werdum didn't tell his coaches he was going to do that kick, that flying kick. So imagine, I would love to see like corner cam of when he landed that kick. His team reacting to that. Really, guys, if you all didn't watch the pay-per-view, it was really one of the most incredible kicks I've ever seen in mixed martial arts history. It was unbelievable. At 39, and for all we said about his physique, Joe, Jesus.
That was badass, though. I'm not going to lie to you. And I think I think on UFC Fight Pass, they do have corner cams. So eventually when the fight does get up there, I think if I'm not mistaken, they do have corner cams. So I could just imagine Master Cordero just going, what was that? What? Because
I actually ordered the pay-per-view on Fight Pass tonight, but forgot about that because the place where I went, they're cord cutters, so they don't have that. So I ordered it on Fight Pass because our power went out back at home. So hopefully it'll let me play it back. I don't know if I'll have unlimited access to it now. I don't know how that works, but very interesting. On the prelims, not a lot to talk about. Like Nick Lent beat a guy that he should have beat in Michael McBride. CB Dollaway didn't fight, which I won't speak about anymore. Drew Dober beat Jason Gonzalez. He should have won that fight too, and did. A couple of guys that beat.
What did you said? You said this show should have been UFC 203. What?
Outclassed.
Drew Dober versus Jason Gonzalez from the minute that fight started. I'm like, there is a large skill difference between these two.
Oh, yeah.
What is happening here? This guy's getting outclassed big time. Drew Dober, take nothing away from Jason Gonzalez, who's just, trying to come up there. This is one of those fights where I'm like, this should not have been put on. There's a big difference here. I also want to say one thing about Brad Tavares, though. Brad Tavares is striking, and his technique. I've always said Thiago Alves was always one of my favorite strikers in his prime because how he used to bury his head in between his shoulders and his elbows and just come out. You can never hit his chin, sort of thing. Brad Tavares is one of my favorite strikers, man. I love his technique, man.
What about it? What is it about it that you like?
Just its footwork, the way he's in and out, the way he reacts, the way he understands his opponent's timing. And as soon as they start even showing any sort of tendency, he's already gone the other way. I like the way he works his angles. It's too bad he hasn't able to really launch. But even the way when he throws his punches, I just love the way he throws them. I love the way he turns his hip. I love his footwork. I mean,
Sure.
I know it's a lot of Ray Seffel right there, but it's fantastic.
He's 1-2 of 3 now. Speaking of him, guy he fought in May of last year, Robert Whitaker. That's one of my favorites. He does that thing that, and I know I bring Gerald Harris up a lot. Gerald Harris would have one hand down, one hand up. And he would do that so he could throw the strike, but get an underhook in really quickly if somebody shot for a takedown. And Robert Whitaker has really mastered that and taken it to a different level. So that's another personal favorite I'd like to throw in there. Also,
one of the things about Whitaker is the way Whitaker holds his body. It's not very square. He's small. He makes himself look small, which you can launch the jab quicker. So yeah, he's a great striker as well for sure.
Now, if he ever faces a guy like Wonder Boy's not at that weight class, but if a Wonder Boy or somebody who goes after the knees, that's a bad way to stand. I've had coaches explain that to me. That's a really bad way to stand because that's even more damage. But yeah, it's just a personal favorite. Also, Yancy Medeiros choked out Sean Spencer. Pretty much what I expected. Miocic versus Overeem got fight of the night. Andrade and Medeiros got performance of the night. I'm surprised CM Punk didn't get performance of the night.
Hashtag facetious.
The hell?
Or is that sarcasm?
He is unknockoutable. So Mickey Gall couldn't knock the guy out. He took some pretty big shots.
Oh, huge shot. There was some thunder there, man. That was pretty good by Mickey. And good on CM Punk for taking them, though, man. He could have tapped out. Like I said earlier on, he could have tapped out.
Imagine how many concussions CM Punk has had in his life. A lot. He had a fractured skull once.
Yeah, that's crazy. Hey, let's give props to Medeiros, though, man. Medeiros finished off Spencer in nice fashion, lands that left high kick, and then pounces on him in a ruthless fashion to get that choke. So give some love to our Hawaiian and slash long-lost Diaz brother. Absolutely.
Good win for him. Got him back on the winning track. 1-2 of 3 now. He's also won 4 of 6. So that's good. We also have a UFC fight night, Poirier versus Johnson next week. That should be fun. Poirier fighting anybody is fun. I
saw Michael Johnson last night. Michael Johnson was at the venue last night. So he's looking pretty ripped. He's looking pretty good. So I didn't have a chance to talk to him. Obviously, I was on the air, and we were bugging Kamaru Usman because I don't know if you've seen Kamaru Usman's Instagram. Those two idiots, him and Johnson, the bell rings, and they're still beating the shit out of each other. Guys had to step in there. Like when these two guys spar, apparently, and Jay-Z Cavalcanti was saying the same thing. They're nuts. Like they're really good friends, but they don't hear the bell, and they keep beating on each other. It's like, stop, guys. So yeah, it was crazy.
Guys, if you haven't been to Fightful.com, do that. Go there, register. You get early access to a lot of our podcasts, a lot of columns, a lot of stuff from Vince Russo, Showdown Joe, Matt Riddle. We talk pro wrestling, MMA, boxing. We're really ramping up our boxing soon. So we started this week and we had live coverage of the GGG fight, the Triple G fight. I'm not a boxing guy. We got Carlos and Darren for that, but we're going to have coverage of the Canelo fight. We got a lot of cool stuff coming, lots of features. I republished a long-form feature that I did about the Brawl for All since it's been talked about a lot lately. But yeah, we have Matt Riddle on our Thursday podcast now, Showdown Joe Wednesday and post-UFC pay-per-view. We have Vince Russo Friday nights. Go there and register. Absolutely free, no credit card required. You get early access to a ton of stuff. Now, Joe, I have to ask you, it seems as if you're running out of time and Jessica Aguilar is going to kick the living shit out of you.
You're aware of this, aren't you?
I watched the show, Joe. I watched Titan FC.
She threatened me during the first, 2 shows ago, that if I said something again on the air, like live, that she'll take me in the cage and beat the shit out of me. I said, okay. And then yesterday we started it again, and I said, all right, there's nothing I can do here. That's why we've got Kamaru between you and I, and she still wants to fight.
He took up for you. He took up for you.
Yeah, I mean,
he took up for you.
It was funny because after the show when I was outside talking to one of our operations staff, and Jessica comes behind me. She gives me a big hug sort of thing, and she shakes my hand. I'm just like, I don't trust you. Don't touch me. You're going in for a takedown. You're shorter than me. And then she's like, she laughed off. But yeah, she wants to kick my ass, dude. Like, I got to watch out. I can't deal with her.
By the way, as Fightful grows, we had full live coverage of Titan FC last night. Cage Warriors, Pancrase, all kinds of cool stuff. Our boy David Teese has really brought a new facet to Fightful.com. We're doing live coverage of everything. I mean, pro wrestling, MMA, boxing now. Fightful.com is the place to get it. Our numbers have been very good so far. We're very happy with that. Our podcast numbers keep growing. We have shows every single day of the week now, and usually on weekends. Joe, we're going to be busy people through most of these weekends. I have to schedule my honeymoon at some point, so I got to try to target late October maybe.
Isn't there a UFC event on every single weekend until the end of 2016?
Except for 2 in late October. So what I'm trying to do, yes. And I don't like to leave the site anyway. Because then I have to bring on an interim editor, and I like to be hands-on everything. I love this job. It was so funny when James asked me when he hired, how much time can you devote to this? And I'm like, well, it'd be an easier question to ask me how much I can't devote to it because I'm always plugged in. But last weekend was a nice weekend off, getting married and all that stuff. And I figured, you know what? I probably need to do that for the honeymoon. So we're going to Orlando for a couple days, but then we're going to do like a second part honeymoon because that's kind of short. So we're just going into the mountains in Tennessee, maybe the weekend after that with her family, with her sister-in-law, brother-in-law. Well, my sister-in-law, brother-in-law. But yeah, so those 2 weekends are really all we got, Joe. Otherwise, we're around.
It's never going to end. And for those that are watching right now and that follow Sean and I on social media, I may have some big news for my own career coming up. Yeah, we'll see. I'm just I literally got the phone call when I landed here today. So we're
you fighting Punk?
No, God, no. He'll kill me. He'll beat the shit out of me. I'd fight him.
No. Oh, why not? Hell, I would too. You gonna fight Edmund?
No, I'm not gonna fight Edmund. But I'll have some good news shortly. We're just in quick negotiations. It's got to be done by tomorrow, which is today actually. And then just check out Sean's Twitter, my Twitter, our social media. Could be on our next podcast. Maybe I'll make the announcement there. We'll see. But or there may be nothing if I'm not happy.
Yeah.
Let's just say that.
Hey, I've been there before. Guys, when we were negotiating with Matt Riddle, I jumped the gun and I was like, oh, got a big announcement coming. And it didn't come for like 2.5 weeks. But fortunately, we got that all ironed out. So yeah, guys, our podcast schedule, we're going to revamp our podcast page. We're going to revamp our forums page, register at Fightful.com, access to those. We're going to make these some of the most user-friendly forums, period. I know you all like those daily threads I was putting up, but we're going to do the forums to kind of take over that. We want it to be like Sherdog for wrestling and MMA and boxing and video games, all that stuff. You're going to be able to talk about anything you want. Joe, you have been on the road, or in the air, rather. By the way, guys, follow at Fightful Online on Twitter and Facebook, as always. Anything you want to tell these people before we go? Any final words about this show and about one CM Punk?
Not much, just other the same thing I said before. Congratulations to him, although it was the worst nightmare he could have possibly had. Props and for having the balls to step in there on this massive stage. Good for him. I personally don't want to see him back in the UFC. I want to see if he wants to continue to actually build it up. Hey, Titan might be interested, and there's also Jessica. If she gets cut, we have a new champion at Titan at 135 pounds, and if she wants that title, she can come down and give it a shot against Kalindra Faria. So I'd love to see that fight for sure.
Yeah, Kalindra, man, she's good. Also, how much money do you think CM Punk would offer Bellator? Or how much money do you think Bellator would offer CM Punk if he were to leave UFC?
That's a good question. I could have put a number on it, but you got to figure 6 digits there.
Oh, easily. And they would probably give him an 0-0 fighter. I mean, they have 0-0 fighters on their prelims all the time. Guys, until next time, Fightful.com is the place to be. I am back tomorrow night after WWE Backlash, I believe with Alex Palowski. I haven't cleared that with him, but otherwise, it might just be me. Who knows? We have Fightful staff picks up, predictions for the show for tonight's UFC 203. Check out how we did. We have features going up all the time, exclusives up all the time on Fightful.com. Stuff you can only hear from us. We interviewed CM Punk, Daniel Cormier, Chael Sonnen, and EC3. I've got one coming up with Muhammad Hassan. I keep plugging. We're going to put it out soon. Got to wait until all this kind of dies down. Fightful.com is the place to be. At Fightful Online on Twitter and Facebook. Guys, thank you so much. Until tomorrow night, we are out.